I am now pulling up outside the home of Mrs. Adams, who is really quite normal. I am quite normal too, although I find that I have to be careful not to say normal too many times, otherwise it suddenly becomes a man standing in a church doorway eating worms, but this is probably also quite normal. I've been giving driving tuition for about 20 years, although not all to Mrs. Adams. In fact, today will be her 7th lesson. The curtains twitch as I stop at the gate. The house has noted my arrival and alerted its occupant. The front door opens and then slams shut again as soon as she pops out, as if glad to see her go. She grins down the path, skipping and carrying a cushion, which makes her drive better. She is wearing some enormously flattened yellow shoes, which also make her drive better, and look like a duck better, and trip on the curb better, so that could be the special driving glasses she wears. I lean over and open the door for her, which saves quite a lot of time, and she gets in and sits down. I do wish she would do up the top 5 buttons of her blouse, as I'm almost 50 now and I have to be very careful. She puts the seatbelt on, which helps, and then tries to adjust the seat. It is very awkward to do that in that way round. I don't know why I teach it. Then she makes the first of many adjustments to the mirror, leaving an immaculate thumbprint right in the middle. Ah, such precision. And after so few lessons too. Then, without declutching, she deftly selects first gear and turns the key to operate the starter. The car does as much as it can do without actually going anywhere, though I must have a word with it about sarcasm and overacting, but I know how it feels. "That's a good start, isn't it?" she says, laughing. "Never mind," says I. "Handbrake, neutral, start the engine." "Pardon?" she says. "Put the handbrake on, the gear lever into neutral, and restart the engine." I thought I said it right the first time, but after 20 years it probably comes out something like "Handbrake, start engine," like the not Chad ad of the news vendor when he means late night standard, or the of the rag and bone collector, which means "Have you any recyclable domestic materials?" Now she is almost ready to move off and is embarking on what I like to call, in my mind, the great clutch experiment. Her foot is applied to the accelerator so she can hear the engine, as can most other people in the street, and she slowly begins to raise the clutch pedal, hands gripping the wheel, teeth gripping lower lip, all gripping stuff, like the bomb disposal man trying to remove the tremble fuse from what usually turns out to be a Second World War chamber pot in the old films. Slowly the clutch creeps up until it reaches what is technically known as the biting point. At this it should pause, but it doesn't. She must have misheard me again. She must have thought that I said, "At this point I want you to take your foot straight off the pedal and put it onto the floor, and I want you to do that very quickly and very suddenly." So the bomb explodes after all, and I let my neck muscles relax so that my head flies backwards and forwards to extract full educational value from the mistake as we buck off down the road. Despite all this, we're actually moving along quite nicely now. I retrieved my spectacles from the back seat, and I'm just about to suggest that perhaps we should think about changing to second gear, as the engine seems to be making rather a lot of noise for a mere 30 miles per hour, when she herself senses some such action is needed and seizes the initiative, or most of her does. The left foot certainly has. The clutch went down very smartly, and the left hand also has caught on, slipping the gear lever neatly from first gear to second. Only the right foot, often a little rebellious or forgetful, decides that the gear changing is not at this moment what it wants to do, and carries on doing what it was doing before, only more so. The engine screams like something out of a horror film for cars, and then it dies. This time it's not overacting. The nearest public telephone is about 5 minutes away, and as I walk, I make a mental note to ask her not to be in such a hurry to get out of first gear next time. Back at the car now, and just as I catch the last yellow flash of Mrs. Adams' shoes turning into her gate half a mile back down the road, the RAC Man appears. That was very quick, I thought. A bit too quick, really. He should have been older. An older RAC man, when confronted with an over-revved driving school engine, will leave it to cool a bit while talking about his attempts to teach his wife to drive. Then he would apply his extremely powerful battery to the patient. The starter will whiz the engine round for about 15 minutes with apparently no compression, then it will begin to shudder into life. It will run on its own then, but making an absolutely awful banging and clanking noise and sounding absolutely terminal. It is at this point that the more shiny-skinned patrolman will give up if he has not done so already, and switch you off and tow you back home, muttering about crankshaft gone, timing slipped, complete overhaul if lucky, or a new engine if not. The more mature man just says it'll settle and drives away, and it does. After a few minutes, it's all back to normal. Nobody has yet been able to explain to me why this happens, and I hope they never do. So between us we sorted it out, and it's back to Mrs. Adams, who is now getting confused about the handbrake. This is a nice thing to get confused about because it can be done while the car is not moving, so it's easy money. Is it down for off or up, and can you go when it's off or on or not? She says. A couple of years ago I thought of a very serviceable mnemonic to cope with this particular confusion, but I don't think I would ever have the nerve to use it. A certain type of person can say things like this and engender unbridled hilarity and even tips, but I cannot, and if I were to try, I know that the rest of the lesson would be in tight-lipped silence and I would be thought a little weird. But I give it, for a small royalty, to those of you who think you could carry it off. It is quite simply this. Handbrakes are like knickers. When they're down, they're off, and you can go. My mind is wandering again. Yes, Mrs. Adams, handbrake, knickers, and start the engine. Oh God, I knew something would happen at that time. Good job I mumbled. She didn't hear. And we are moving off again. Nice clear road ahead. Chance to look at my notes. Ah yes, lesson 7 this is. She's a lot less nervous now. Lessons 1, 2 and 3. She smelt so strongly of harpic as she got in the car. Quite made my eyes water. I'm idly wondering if pupils keep notes on their instructors when she speaks. I think these shoes are better, she says, by way of explanation for the really quite smooth gear change that has just occurred. I look down. They're pink. The same shoes, I'm sure, but in pink. If she goes on like this rate, when she passes her test, she can sell all her shoes and buy a car. Oh, concentrate. We're nearly at a mini roundabout. Still in third and moving rather fast, but there's no traffic around, so I'll let her get on with it and see what happens. Cover the brake and let my hand slide up my knee as near to the wheel as possible without being too obvious. What happens now surprises even me. The right foot hits the brake rather hard and then instantly comes off and then goes down hard on the accelerator. This is also quickly released, and then the left foot goes down for the brake, so the car is almost stopped, and amazingly the right foot is crossing over the left foot and putting the clutch down. Take both feet off, I say very loudly and precisely. This works. The little feet sink twitching to the floor, and we carry on, slowly crossing the roundabout, and then proceed along the open road. Are you all right, she says, sounding very concerned. I hate it when they say that. I feel like clutching my heart and groaning, pills, quick, in the glove box. Or my posterior, and spare trousers, quick, in the boot. As it is, I just say quietly, yes, I'm okay. I was just thinking of my father. It reminded me of him back there. What, you mean an accident? She whispered, relishing the thought of something to out-awful her driving. No, nothing like that. He used to be a cinema organist. The pedal technique was similar, but he had the advantage of special pointed patent leather shoes. I don't know if you can still get them. I enjoyed that. We continue in silence for a while. The country lane is quiet and has a calming effect. Far in the distance, some traffic lights are just turning red. Soon they will be green, and by the time we reach them, red again. Familiarity gives you a feeling for traffic lights, verging almost on a psychic link as you become well acquainted with them. As we stop, she gets ready to go. Good for her. I don't like all this handbrake, neutral, and don't get ready till the amber light shows stuff. Results in too much panic and hooting from behind. So we are ready to go. She's watching the lights. As with a silent click, the amber light adds itself to the red. She does not react. They may try to trick her, of course. Go straight back to red again. You can't be too careful. But no, the green light alone shines out now, but yet she is still. Time has stopped. Nothing moves. I can't think what's going on in her mind, but I know what to do. I say, right ho, and at the same time I make a vigorous sort of underarm bowling gesture with my right hand. This breaks the spell and she storms into action, and off we go. Soon I fear that we may need a new figure to appear on our streets. In addition to the lollipop ladies and traffic wardens and pelicans and zebras, the right ho man. He will sit on top of a stepladder with a megaphone, like a tennis umpire, at every set of lights where hesitation was a problem. We are now back outside the Adams house, arriving with the sort of crash landing that concludes many a seventh driving lesson. The intense concentration needed to bring the car to rest within walking distance of the curb means that there's none left over for the bit about putting the clutch down as the car comes to rest. The juddering dust caused reminds the left foot of his obligation, but this takes attention away from the steering, so a wheel strikes the curb, which sounds worse than it really is, but in fact can be more serious than it seems. The engine shudders and dies, and the car freezes. I expected to collapse in a heap like the Laurel and Hardy mobile, but it just sits there quite intact, but in need of counselling. Right, I say, looking out of the window. There are just a couple of points I would like to touch on. First, regarding your position in the road, you shouldn't have one. Secondly, remember when a bus is in front of you that it will stop. If you let this surprise you and get stuck up behind it every time, then there's really no earthly reason for owning a car. Also, remember that people who give right signals every time they pass a parked vehicle make me spit. Thank you. Same time next week. Don't forget your cushion. I've got a boot full. She skips up the drive and pushes open her front door. A mighty blast of Harpic-scented air whistles out, knocking her off her feet and sending her cartwheeling down the drive. Various household items and utensils go with her, together with the dustbin, milk bottles, the cat, and a small figure in red. I had noticed him earlier, urinating in the pond, and had taken him for a gnome, but later found out that he was Mr. Adams. The whole lot swirled past me and away, down the road, the screaming and clattering dying away, as if someone was quickly turning down the volume. You see funny things when you're on the road, year after year. I used to keep a little list of them and noticed that Plumstead High Street definitely had more than its fair share. It must be on a ley line or something. Once I saw 2 security men come out of a bank. They walked up to their terribly armoured van, looked carefully up and down, and then tapped on the side with a secret code known only to security men and robbers, and then a hatch opened and out came 2 steaming cups of tea. It was raining at the time, I remember, because then something else happened. A man walked past with a large crusty loaf strapped on his head with a woolly scarf tied under his chin. I shall walk down this street with a camera one day and make my fortune. Anyway, I jump over into the driver's seat. Odd, most people's bums are bum temperature, so when you change seats you don't notice any difference. But after Mrs. Adams leaves, the seat is noticeably freezing cold. It could be the cushion, I suppose, but I wonder, for I'm beginning to think that she's a little odd in some ways.